This episode is brought to you by Jing's Mortgage Team. Jing's Mortgage Team is a team of real estate mortgage professionals whose mission is to help anyone with their real estate needs. If you're looking to buy a home, sell a home, refinance your home, have credit issues, or in need of an investment loan, we can definitely help you. If you're looking for a real estate agent, we know the best of the best real estate agents. Visit the link below for more information.
My good friend, Tim Marchisotto, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Hamilton Lao. Oh, it's an absolute honor. For those of you, our viewers that are just tuning in, Secret Sauce with Hamilton Lao strives to invite industry leaders and professionals on, pick their brain about what makes their industry unique, what makes them successful, and what are some things that they can share within their lives with our viewers that can potentially inspire and motivate. So Tim, thank you so much. I have an awesome guest today. Tim Marchisotto has been in the coaching industry, professional sports, for almost 30 years, 29 years, right? He's been coaching for a myriad of sports, whether it's baseball. Right now he's focusing on soccer, right? That's your primary coach.
Yeah, no, I've been a college soccer coach for 26 years and coaching soccer for 29, and yeah, so that's
Awesome. I'm so excited to have him on because I really find Tim's story extremely fascinating, and specifically, with the Richmond American University that he's currently with right now. He's the director of the RAISA program, which it's like an awesome international program that connects candidates, with exposure of this professional sports industry, both in the U.S. and in the U.K., potentially even Europe. Am I correct on that?
Yeah, no, we have other partnerships, and so there are other pathways to to pro for for players, but primarily it's about getting your your degree, which is both a UK and a US based degree. Richmond American University is is regionally accredited. And so both obviously here and then obviously accredited in the UK. So it's a dual degree that you're getting. So I guess kind of a two for the price of one, so to speak.
Price of one. That's awesome.
And it allows student athletes to go abroad. So the UK doesn't have the same NCAA sport model that we do. Sport has certainly expanded in UK outside of some of the big ones. The obviously soccer as we call it over there, football, rugby, cricket, so on. A lot of other sports have been huge over there. That's why you now see American football, and the NFL has games over there. The NHL goes over there. So basketball is very popular over there. So it's great. So what we do is that we provide what really is a professional playing and training environment with having the educational component to it. So it allows student athletes that maybe so. Look at it this way: instead of spending like a semester abroad, as you may do during the course of your college career, this is you're doing your whole degree abroad. So we offer bachelor's degrees. We have two campuses. We have Leeds, which is our home base. The college itself is based out of London, and then we're just starting our London soccer program for both men and women here this upcoming fall, which is super exciting, and it expands our educational offerings that we're going to have. So it's pretty good. And then we also offer graduate degrees. So somebody that potentially played 4 years here at an NCAA school still wants to try to play, maybe they didn't get picked up professionally, whatnot, and want to find another pathway, but yet still understand the importance of continuing their education. We provide that opportunity as well.
Yeah, we were having this conversation in the pre-podcast about how in America you have the NCAA, the league per se, right? And then in the UK, again, you were saying they have another kind of the equivalent of FIFA over there, right? Like a league that you guys do participate and give experience.
Yeah,
with,
you
right?
have all the leagues coming down from
Right.
the Premier League. It goes all the way down, and you get into your your county associations and stuff. So there's a lot of playing opportunity over there, and always a big difference between the UK and here, or the rest of the world, and here is what's called promotion and relegation.
Right.
So somebody that starts off in a lower league can then jump up and jump up, and probably what's made that, kind of come to the forefront here in America is, the actors Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney buying a team in Wales, Wrexham.
That's right.
And there's a TV show about it now. And so, in their second year, they gained, promotion into another league. Right now, they're up at top of the league that they're in now, in line for another promotion, which is very different. You don't have that here. You finish last, in any whatever league that you play in here in America. We have MLS. And we have, USL, NISA, several other, leagues that are, professional, but, lower level than MLS. So what you would maybe equate to like minor league and maybe other sports, something similar.
And it seems like there are certain options in America, right, to play in, of course.
Yeah.
But then I think what's exciting to me is the opportunity to have way more options, because especially with soccer is huge in the UK, right? And you were just mentioning like counties have their own teams, right? Like it's huge. Like I wish, we're in Nassau County, right? I mean, I guess there is a university in Nassau that has a soccer team, I'm sure somewhere, but it's like,
several. Yeah.
Right. But like, it's huge. Like you be a local celebrity essentially, right? When you play in counties in
To give
UK.
an idea, to kind of equate it to what you're saying, so
Sure.
like here in Nassau County, we've had a team, the Long Island Rough Riders. So they've been kind of gone back and forth between professional and amateur status over the years, and have provided a place to play for current college players, graduates, that are looking to move on. They've been around for a long time. I think, since the early 90s, if my memory, or 89, somewhere around there. I've had some great coaches, some great players, that have come through. But you're talking about one, opportunity, like, in Nassau County. And now things have kind of grown, and there's definitely some other teams and some other, leagues. But I would say for, Long Island kids, Long Island Rough Riders has always been. Now you go over to England, where you have clubs that have first teams, second teams, and then you have, within the different, so the FA, which is the Football Association, that's what governs all of soccer, over in the UK.
Okay.
So they work with all the different, at the county level, which would be the equivalent to Nassau County, to do teams and whatnot. So there's just a lot of playing opportunity over there. And when we talk about county, it's those clubs will enter teams into those county leagues, and then they can move up into non-league, and then they can move up into to get into the professional, one of the lower level professional leagues. So it's just that promotion, that relegation. It's based upon your performance and whatnot. So it's interesting.
That's awesome. So if, let's say, hypothetical situation here, like let's say like I'm a student, I'm enrolled already. I took a class in the UK. It's like I'm missing home. Like there's a campus in the US as well that there isn't.
No, not for us. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
no. We're solely based in the in the UK.
Oh, I
Yeah,
see.
Yeah,
But
we're
as far as
solely based.
playing, you'd be able to play in the US as well, right? Or no?
No. Everything. No, we are a UK based
Oh, okay, got it.
university and program. So what it is that US kids have the opportunity to go abroad. So like I was saying earlier,
Got it.
it's very similar to doing that semester abroad versus with us, you're doing your whole 4 years
Right.
abroad. Which really gives the opportunity to expose student athletes to just different cultures. Right? Depending on what their major is, I mean, things are done. We were talking in the in the pre-interview about even medical field, business.
Yeah.
There are different ways to that you practice within your your given field. So you're getting exposure to how things are done in another country, which is great. I mean, it just gives you a different perspective on, again, culture, community, and your field of of study, being able to do internships abroad, and taking all of that, and then coming back to the U.S. when when your college career is done. And listen, I coaching college for so many years. I mean, I've recruited people from all over the world, all over the country, and often when they go to college and maybe meet a significant other and whatnot, and that takes them on a completely different path. They don't always end up back home. They end up staying, and whether it's staying in America, staying in a different state, and vice versa. We can have that happen here too, where somebody falls in love with the UK, continues to expand on their football playing career, and move on to another level. As I said, we've got pathways. We just had signed a partnership agreement with Bolton Wanderers, which is a pretty well-known professional club in Northern England. So that's very exciting to be able to provide that association and those potential pathways with their club. So all very exciting things for somebody, a soccer player here in the U.S. that really wants to experience something more.
Yeah.
And as I said, our program is a little bit more immersive. It's much more of like because it's basically a 10-month program, and it's a very professional environment, where in NCAA we have certain contact times. We have a little bit, different rules that we have to, follow and whatnot. So, so definitely two different experiences, two great experiences, but two different experiences.
Wow, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
I always like to have, industry professionals that are in, some kind of sports field on the show as well, because we've had in the past professional boxers, we've had power lifters on, so I would love to, I'm excited and love to have you on, because it's like I love to have this conversation, because it's I think a lot of it is internal, that leads to success, right? I think there is a underlying assumption that people that are successful somehow, somebody gave it to them, or they read a secret book somewhere, and it's like, oh, I got all the secrets. Yeah. Or somebody, somebody like maybe somebody higher up just like, gave them the company, and then now they're winners. No, but I feel wholeheartedly in my heart, I think that there is something internal that is achieved through either struggle, or whether it's through in your case, the competition of sports, whether it's again competitive powerlifting, or whether it's competing in a boxing match. It's like there's something internal that's gained that's there's huge gravity in it that changes you. And thank you again for coming on. But I want to talk to you a little bit about your experience with coaching. Specifically, was it something that you wanted to do when you were little? I mean, how did you get into the coaching field? Because 29 years, you got to be passionate about something and been doing it for 29 years.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think it's very, rooted in, obviously in my upbringing. And, I grew up in Syosset, here on the North Shore of Long Island.
Yeah.
And I think there's kind of three things that come into play, with, being in coaching today and having gone in that, in that direction. One, it was the time, that I grew up, here. I grew up in the, 70s and, in early 80s. And so, soccer in this country was massively, huge at the time, in that kind of mid to late, 70s. You had the New York Cosmos, you had some of the best players in the world. You had Pele, who pretty much everybody knows was here in New York, playing. You had Franz Beckenbauer, Giorgio Canaglia. So all names that at the time were the best of the best, within the world. And you had, at the time, whatever it was called back then, Giant Stadium, selling out. You had 70,000, people, 78,000 people, going to watch, a professional, soccer game in the 70s. And I remember, in my room, my parents had gotten me. So the name of the league was the NASL. So I had NASL curtains. I had an NASL soccer ball lamp. I had NASL, sheets, and I had all the teams. The Cosmos, the Tampa Bay Rowdies, so on and so forth. Just was fortunate to grow up in a time, where soccer was actually, kind of, it was a little burst of popularity. And then, as you kind of got, as that kind of waned a bit, it wasn't a sustainable business, model. It was just bringing over all these, stars, over here. So it just wasn't sustainable. And then what you ended up having is like, for instance, the Nassau Coliseum, you ended up, they had a professional indoor team, the New York Arrows. And anybody that grew up, that was a kid playing soccer, had a little New York Arrows orange mini soccer ball. Again, for any of us, that anybody in your audience that watches it will know, maybe still has one. And so, we were going to these indoor, soccer games that, again, had famous players from other countries, played in the World Cup, whatnot. But now you started to have a little bit more homegrown, talent, some really good American, players. So, we started to now identify a little bit more with some of those, American players. Growing up playing soccer, you had dad, coaches, both, my dad helped my mom, she helped coach my brother's team. And, we had some of, the guys that I played with, their parents were very, influential. And again, New York at the time, a melting pot, you had people coming from all over. And this is maybe the second part, of, going into coaching, where you had these dads from different, countries, from Portugal, from Italy, from Malta, from Sri Lanka, that loved the sport, that had played the sport, Israel. So we had these kids and their dads, and so there was this huge influence where we really just got into the game at another level, and we used to have these pickup games. I remember we used to go to Thompson Middle School, and we used to play these pickup games with these dads who at the time we probably thought they were old, and now they're probably my age, if not younger. At the time, and you could just see the quality, and even in just playing with us kids and playing these pickup soccer games, you just learned so much about the game from them, and it's just so interesting. Like, all of us today are still, a lot of us are still involved in the game in some way, and a lot of us are still in contact, with each other. So, you take that almost like that, even though we played organized soccer, it was almost that non-organized, part that really developed that love and that understanding, which led to, to coaching. I mean, we used to play, street soccer. I mean, I remember we used to put garbage cans, and, we wouldn't move them out of the way for the cars, and, people would get, angry at us and stuff. But that was our field, and we weren't going to stop playing. And, we're probably bratty little kids, when you think about it now. But no, it was just incredible. We had a mom who was a Pan Am, which shows how long ago, a Pan Am stewardess, and we used to give her $1, and she would get these sticker books and sticker packets and bring it back, for us. And this is how we learned about who all the international, teams were, and national teams, professional teams. So you just, you had this, again, that the time of soccer in this country, you had this like little melting pot growing up in Syosset of people of, different nationalities, and kind of bringing that love, for soccer, in. And then, in the competition that we had with each other, like we pushed each other to be, to be better every single day. Every single day was our World Cup, playing.
Right.
And then the next part is that, as, the sport became a little bit more organized, as you started to have, quote unquote, professional coaches, paid, coaches, that changed. I think that gave us a little bit more, direction. We had a couple of good, a guy, Franz St. Lot, another guy, Mark Steffens, both, former professional, players, and came in, and we got to have some exposure, for them with coaching. And then that, like you gave it kind of that bug that, I wanted to play. But somewhere down the line, I would love to be able to, to be them, and be some of the, the dads, that we were exposed to, and be able to coach and do this for other people. So I think the whole foundation of me being in coaching was all those positive experiences from the dads, the coaches, the professional coaches, the former players that played at a high level that all had this interaction with us, and I think it's made an indelible mark on myself and some of my very close friends, like I said, that we still work in the in the game at different levels. So that's the secret sauce was
Mic drop.
was growing up was growing up in Syosset, and all of that is what helped shape this.
Yeah, there's something fascinating about just, I mean, I think our culture has a polarizing perspective about groupthink, like just groups of people thinking a certain way, right? But I think that there's something very fascinating about team sports, about, groups of people that come together that have a very common goal. I mean, I'm not a political plug or anything. I'm just saying, like, I think that it says a lot about human nature, that people like to group together and think a certain way. Whether it's positive or negative, that's not really what I'm getting at. But it's fascinating where people come together, and there's a lot that can be studied just from different groups, especially with, in my opinion, sports teams, because it's not just about one player, right? No. Somebody could be extremely good at a particular sport, but then is a rebel, doesn't really follow any plays, and then the team loses, right? And it just seems like it's symbolic of life in a way, right? Whether it's a family, or whether it's an organization you're in, or whether it's work, or other sports teams. It's an immediate analogy of life, and that's why I love sports so much. I'm not great at many sports, but I love the spiritual building component of just coming together, coming to this agreement that we're gonna play, and if we want to be the best, you were mentioning before, pushing each other in a way. And in many ways, if there is no leader, like a coach, the energy of that particular team or organization or club or whatever, it can go away, right? It can stray very far from what it needs to be. Negativity could happen. I feel like the power and importance of a really solid coach, and we kind of perceive coaches as the assumption that they're great. You're a coach, you have to be great. But that's not, I'm sure you can acknowledge, and you've seen, that's not always true, and could just be some random guy that has time at the moment, right? But then on vice versa, it could also be somebody with an immense wealth of knowledge, not just with the sport, but with life, and they're imparting these soft skills onto a group of people. Just like, these are just little things that just comes in my head, how important, team sports is, how important, in just being able to be mentored by a great leader is. But
I mean, I think that's where it goes. I mean, we can talk about sports, but behind every great sports teams, is a great leader. So what makes them a great leader? So when you look at, you take just to put it, where it's still probably fresh in people's mind, Andy Reid with the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm a big, Liverpool fan. So you have, Jurgen Klopp, who's a completely different, kind of, leadership style, personalities. So that's, two different sports. And then, you sit there and you look at, somebody like a Bill Belichick, who's been very, successful over the years. All these different, coaches in different, sports, but all very different people. They lead, differently, how they inspire. Some are just so good with, X's and O's and that, they just, it's to help players eliminate mistakes. They're so well drilled. I think you have, somebody like a Jurgen Klopp who's just so much more inspirational and emotional and has a connection and almost wills, his players, to do more. Where, Belichick, not so much with X's and O's, but just, had a culture that just didn't allow that culture to ever change. That was it was exactly the way that that he wanted. I don't want to sit there and say military. I don't know if that's the right analogy, but I think just very all three are kind of different things, and I think you know, culture is very important, and that transcends obviously sports. I mean, that goes into, you know, whatever it is that we do, for a living. I mean, what is the culture within, the office, the workplace, that you work in? Is your leader somebody that inspires? Is your leader that the common thing is that everybody hates them? And that's what gets the team, going. When I say team, meaning that, your coworkers. I mean, there's all different, motivations. And so to your point, it's very interesting, to look at successful, groups in whatever, area they're in, whether it's sports, business, education, the medical, whatever it is, how they got there, and what, how that group got there, or how that individual, got there. So, going back to your question is that, that's why it's so interesting to have, very successful coaches be interviewed and truly be interviewed, not, on the podium after a game,
Sure.
but, to kind of break down, really, get to their background, asking the same questions that you're, asking me. So, I think, leadership, you have to decide what type of leader, you want to be. There's a great book called Servant Leadership that, somebody had given me years ago, probably about 14 years ago. And, a lot of things in that, has kind of, stuck with me over the years. And, again, about how you lead, how you treat the people that you work with, that, you're there to help make them better, as a leader versus them to kind of serve you. It's the thing. I mean, does you as the boss, do you have the parking space up front, or do you park, the furthest, away? I mean, they're little things. I mean, you can sit there and you can point to all little things, that somebody does that has an effect on their coworkers.
Absolutely. I think coaches don't get enough credit, if you ask me. I think you do. Certain coaches are celebrated, right? Of course, like what is it? Vince Lombardi, I believe,
was a great
American football right,
coach.
Exactly. Like you have coaches that are celebrated for sure, but I feel like modern day nowadays is like we focus in on the player, LeBron James, like Steph Curry. We focus on the player, and it's like, I don't think, I am not in favor of that. I think that it's always better to, even though you credit the player that's scoring the most points, I get it. But then at the same time, it's like, who's bringing everything together?
Sure.
A lot of times, in this case, it's the background leader, the coach, I feel like coaches should be more celebrated, if you ask me, because it's like everything that you just mentioned, it's not just about getting the team to play. It's the soft skills. Sometimes you have to identify and solve potentially a personal problem.
Of course.
That is causing the player to not be able to perform at its most optimal ability, optimal ability. It can be a whole bunch of different things. Yeah. So it's like, it's not simply just, we're going to bring a group of people together, you play this, it's a tremendous amount of soft skill that's required in it.
Huge amount. I mean, you as a coach at, any level, let's just say, like, take high school, college, professional. You are a coach, you are a mentor, you are a counselor, you're a psychologist, you're an advisor, you're a surrogate, parent. One of the things that people have to realize is, I mean, even again at high school and club sports, with parents working long hours and stuff, and when you're playing on a sports team, and like sometimes all of a sudden you're with that coach just as much as you're with your own parents. Right. So, you can, as a coach, you can have a very profound, impact, on a young student athlete's, life, and then, take it, going on to the next level, in college, same thing, because we're around each other so much. So like when recruiting a student athlete at college, you want to be, it's not just picking the best player. It's like both ways. Like if I'm a student athlete and being recruited, I got to ask the question, do I want to be with you, coach, for the next 4 years? Pretty much 24/7, right. And vice versa. I have to ask that question. Do I want to be with you 24/7? For the next, 4 years. And really, I mean, our success, is measured by, as a college coach, is measured by 18 to 20 something year olds, and this is such a pivotal time in their in their lives. And we're gonna be dealing and do deal with all kinds of stuff. And as you said, I mean, personal issues, family issues, school issues, financial issues. People's situations change. So it almost becomes the actual playing of the sport is secondary to the management of life. That's like after all these years, that's almost the way that it's become. And listen, I mean, the world has that we live in has changed. We've gone through some major things, obviously, in this country. And when I say that, I mean you're talking about political. You're talking
Sure.
about social. You're talking about medical with having a a pandemic. And again, these are all things. It doesn't matter which way you fall on, what you believe, what you don't. It doesn't matter. We went through it, so it doesn't matter what you think. It's how did you handle it? How did we come through it? And it was a very, very pivotal time for sports, and especially college sports, because you have to remember too. I mean, as much as we want a kid to choose where they're going to college, it's got to be a fit academically. It's got to be a fit, obviously, athletically, financially, socially,
Emotionally, right.
everything. But ultimately, at the end of the day, they're coming there to play whatever the sport is that they're playing. That's the number one decision. So now during COVID, that number one reason why somebody was playing somewhere was now taken away. So I think the job that I would say universities, coaches across the board, did, I think, to handle that, to keep players, engaged, motivated, keeping them on track in school. I think that's probably an unsung job that was done that people just don't really realize, how much,
Impact,
coaches,
yeah.
Impact that they had, during that time. And I know that was a very difficult, time, obviously, for me to navigate with my, college players.
Yeah.
But I think we did a good job. I think the college I was with at the time did a good job. So, but it was, it was interesting, to do that.
Yeah, it's like there's a quote from I don't remember the military guy that said it was like the hottest fire makes the strongest steel.
Yeah.
And it's so profound for me because it can be translated into many aspects of different people's lives, and I can see where it resonates with your story that you were just mentioning, like during such a hard time, when students were just uncertain, unsure where what they were going to do at this point, because it's like they apply for the school and then COVID hit. It's like they can't play anymore. It's like, shoot, what do I do now? And it's like such a difficult time for you, I can imagine. But I'm sure at the same time you gain so much from that, because like soft skills, and it's like something that you can translate into your own personal life too, right? And it's like the magic, in a way, it's like the magic of leading and being a coach, because it's like you have so many variables that arise, and it's like, oh man, how do I handle this? Well, how would a sports athlete handle this, right? Like that same mentality.
Yeah.
And then when you overcome it, it's like, oh wow, this is interesting, like. But what were some of the things I would say during that time? Because it seems like a very difficult, probably one of the most, I would assume and theorize, maybe one of the most difficult times in your career. Would you say?
I would say, yeah, for sure. No, 100%.
Yeah.
I mean,
how did you navigate through that time?
So one, I mean, was anybody staying? Because at any college program, you have people that reside there. You have people that reside in the in the state. Meaning where home base is.
Right.
People coming from other countries. The places in. So, how are we going to get them home? Are they staying? Are they coming? Are they going? First and foremost, how what is the immediate future for living look like, and then to keep them on track from an educational standpoint. So you're going from in-person classes. My college at the time, I think we were prepared and we were ahead of it, and had already started preparing even before it was going to come down. So I think we did a really good job where I think we had a good transition into online classes. But let's face it, online's different. I think that you have to be a little bit more, organized, attentive, responsible. to sit there and be in that forum. I mean, sitting in front of a computer, doing a class, I think that can just be, I mean, it can be tough for me at my age, let alone, an 18 to 20 something year old, where it's different, going into a class, going, in person, there's that social, aspect. You have teammates in your, in your classes, you have other friends, in your classes, and it's that act of going and being, present, during a class, where now, you may have an instructor now teaching from their own home and, video and, now that little bit of that in person, is lost, that human interaction is lost. And that, I think that was very, very tough. So, what we tried to do from, a coaching standpoint was to try to have a lot of engagement and touch points with our student athletes, and we had to get creative with it. And I think that's now, I mean, things like Zoom and Teams and Google Meet, all these things were very, very helpful, and we could sit there and we can give our players individual things to do. And we used video, and I had the players video, sending video clips of them doing whatever activity, whether it's physical or technical, skill related to to soccer, and have them doing things and then sharing it with each other, so we could sit there and do, and then we would get on as a team and
Right.
and talk. We would, even as coworkers, too, we would still on Friday, we would have a virtual, happy hour.
Right.
And, I mean, a lot of people, did that. And, where at least you got together, and that really turned out to be so much fun. And there was people that, like coworkers that I never really had talked much, to or
Right.
interacted with, that now, got to, to learn about them. And I think, too, seeing, like doing a student athlete doing a video, and then all of a sudden their dog comes in the video. Like, it was hilarious. It was it was funny. Or
Right.
then all of a sudden, like, a little sister helps. And then seeing, like, if we're doing like a drill, like where you would put down cones. Well, if somebody didn't have cones, they put down shoes, a backpack. So you're now we're catching a glimpse into somebody's home life. You're seeing a sibling, a pet, walking around behind, or even helping. Like, there was things where then even a parent was helping with something that we were doing. So it just, and that became like talk points. Like, oh, who's that behind there? Oh, show us your your. So now
Right.
you're having all of this interaction that you actually wouldn't have had before. I
Right.
wouldn't have known those siblings. I wouldn't have known that little dog.
Right.
I wouldn't have maybe seen what their what their house
Right.
looked like. So I think it was good. It was positive, even though it was challenging. But it created some new touch points, some new talking points with with our student athletes. But the main thing was to keep people going and not quit, not give up. Not easy to sit there and say, I'm just going to sit this semester out,
Right.
because this started in the fall. And then, we were one of the schools that did end up kind of playing a truncated, spring schedule. We took a lot of, obviously, precautions that actually worked out, pretty well. Our conference did well. Lots of restrictions and stuff, but we came out of it pretty good, and we were able to give our student athletes at least because soccer's is played in the fall, so we ended up playing in the spring. But so keeping players engaged and eligible, and not losing anybody from the fall to the spring, that's what we needed to do to accomplish, and we did it. And like I said, it wasn't easy, but I think a lot of positive ended up coming out of it, and a lot more, almost another level of personal relationships with players and faculty and staff and whatnot. So it was interesting.
That's so important.
Yeah.
And hats off to you for doing this. I mean, there are a lot of people that were just in the education field that was just like, oh, it's we're all locked in, and it is what it is. If you want to pay attention, great, in class, in Zoom, and if you don't, then you don't. It is what it is. It's disgusting. I was still teaching public school at the time, and there was a lot of industry professionals at that time in public school that was kind of like that, and it was horrible. But hats off to you for making the effort and also utilizing that negativity in a way, in a positive, because I find that a successful leader or a successful coach, people that are in charge of a group of people, what makes them most successful is their personal interactions with individuals and knowing them very well. So for you to be able to find those little jewels within those moments where it's like, oh, your dog, oh, your mom, hey mom, type of thing. It's like it's really important that you found that. Me and Jing with our mortgage team, we're coached as well. It's great. Like, she really helps guide us through any potential professional obstacles that we have. She's amazing. Shout out to Irene Duford. You're awesome. Love you. Me and Jing love you a lot. Like a family member. Appreciate you. But what I find her, her ability being so, her ability that's being so impressive is her ability to really understand me and understand Jing. And understand, what is something that will move the needle for us. She can say to move the needle for us, to get us moving. What she shouldn't say, and it takes time.
And everybody's different. That's why you have to get to know. To your point, like you have to know your players. You have to know what the hot buttons are, where you can push, where you can't. No, and that's why you.
Right.
It's not throwing out a ball. It's not saying run here, do this, right? Do this play, do that. It's understanding, again, whether it's sports, business. It's understanding the people that you're leading and how you need to lead them, and you are going to lead different people differently within your group, team, organization.
But ultimately, I think it's also in any profession as well. Ultimately, and to inspire or to lead people, you have to know them. You have to know the group of people that you're working with, right? How do you expect to get somebody to like or follow or listen to you if you are anti-pets? When you have somebody that has a pet and loves their pet, I'm sure, right? And it's like these little things are so super important to motivate and bring out the most optimal aspect of a person. To me, that's always been the point of coaching, or having a mentor or being led by a leader, whether it's a teacher or a coach, like a sports coach, that to me has always been the foundation of what coaching has always been about. Bring out the best in the people that you're coaching.
Absolutely.
So that's amazing. I just wanted to mention that, because it's awesome. It's impressive that during that dark time, you still utilize and leverage that dark time to get to know people that people better that you normally wouldn't have known that somebody has a dog.
Vice versa. I mean, I remember I took the computer and I walked around my house and I showed this is where I live. This is and stuff. And they'd see pictures and these are my grandkids and stuff. And so again, I mean, they caught a little bit of a glimpse too. I think you have to be willing to to open up as well as a as a leader, and because if the people that you're leading also understand you a little bit more and where you come where you come from, where you are coming from, when you're asking them to do things. So it's equally as important both ways, that the people that you're leading, but also that the people that you are leading, they know who you are as a person.
Right. And there's also, this is a great topic to kind of meditate on more. Because it's like there's coaches in all industries, right? Like whether it's sports or, whether it's real estate, whether it's, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I can go on and on about this. There's coaches there's people that, come out and say that, then claim that they're coaches. And you have to pay thousands of dollars a month to kind of experience this, this coaching by them. What would you say is important for somebody to look out for if they're looking to work with a coach? Obviously in your industry, right? But and in general too, if you have any opinions about that.
Well, I think like you said, I mean, in so many industries now, I mean, there are coaches. I mean, within a sales organization, you have people that are coaching the salespeople. So in different industries, you're looking at metrics. You're looking at there are things to correlate to their success or non-success. So I think any good coach, no matter what it is, sports, business, you have to know what to look for, right? So I mean, I think statistics, numbers, metrics, are very important in everything that we do,
Right.
no matter what it is. And generally, there's a lot of information, and information, is knowledge. That can give us, some answers,
Right.
to why somebody is being successful or, not successful, right?
Right.
So like in a sales, business, well, did you make 100 dials today? No, I made 50. All right, so you only got 2 appointments. And now the other person made 100 dials and got 10 appointments. So, very basic thing, right? That there's a correlation between the more that you do, the more that you're going to get, and then the more successful that you'll be.
Right.
So now, as a coach, you may want to find out, all right, why did we only do 50? What was your talk time? What was your whatever it may be. Was there something else going on? So that's just one area, right?
Right.
One industry, and then let's just say in colleges, for instance, that you have an academic coach, so somebody that's helping, whether it's a master's student, grad student, undergrad student, so some type of academic support. So why are they struggling? All right, are you putting in, so tell me, how many hours a day are you studying, or a week, or what does that look like? When are you doing, that, right? So you really have to, as a coach in anything, you have to be very analytical. You have to find out, so yeah, I study every night. Well, what time do you start studying? Well, I study from 11 to 1. Well, that doesn't sound, too optimal,
Right.
But why are you only studying? Well, because after I go to school and then I've got, practice, for whatever they're in, whether it's a sport, an activity, a club, well, then I work from 4 to 10. All right. So then I get home, I have something to eat, and then I do my, my studying. So that's where, okay. So, can we maybe somehow, change that? We look at that, schedule. Can you maybe push a class maybe a little bit earlier where we can get stuff, in there? Is there a way to maybe, switch the time that you're studying, whatnot? So, it's the same thing then, for sports. I mean, again, any top, athlete, it's not what they do in the time that they're with us, with the team, with
Right.
us as coaches. It's what you do in
Outside.
the time outside, right? So, are you getting enough sleep? What are you putting in your body? Are you doing the extra work that you're supposed to be doing? When are you doing that stuff? What else are factors or influences in your life that may be affecting your on the field performance? And obviously, nowadays, just in general, so you take those 3 things we talk about, mental health and understanding, like, what are personal factors, family factors that, that may be, coming in, financial, factors, that could be putting, I mean, financial stressors can be huge on a college, student athlete, whatever, that then prohibits them from continuing, to go to school. Right, at any level, it could be at a junior college or 4-year school, whatever it may be, And so, does anybody truly know and understand those, those struggles? If a kid drops out, is anybody contacting him to find out, why? Do we have support systems? Do we delve into that enough, or provide them an opportunity before it's too late to sit there and say, hey, I'm not going to be able to afford next semester. What can we do? What can we figure out?
Right.
So, there's just, I mean, so the overall point is information is knowledge. Information is key. And for any good coach in whatever sector they're in, they have to ask questions.
Yeah.
They have to really fully understand who it is that they're talking with. What are all the variables? What are they doing? When are they doing it? All of that, all that knowledge I think is important.
That. Thank you for that response. I love that, because it's not just enough to know the person. It's not just enough to get along with the person and give inspiring quotes, right? We have to kind of back it up with metrics, right? And I love that.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, if I'm paying thousands of dollars to see a coach and I'm still doing the same things that I'm doing,
Right.
Now we have to come back and ask the question now, like, why am I wasting this time and money? If, I feel great, but is that moving the needle, right?
Right.
And I think that's important in all fields, again, like whether it's piano or, you know, being coached in sales or whatever, because it's like the metrics, really, this is the hard evidence, right? Is the coaching effective? You know, because otherwise it would be connecting with a social worker, right? Or a therapist, right? You go and you feel good about yourself. Then that wouldn't be effective coaching, now would it?
No, not at all. No, I
right.
think there has to be results. For anything that you do, you have to see results, right?
Absolutely. Now, in your 29 years of, I wanted to ask, your 29 years of coaching experience, have you ever encountered a player who went through tremendous hardship, whether it's personal or even on the field, that you don't have to name names, but that you're willing to share, and like how that person, you know, got over it or were able to overcome that obstacle, and how?
There's a lot,
Yeah.
you know, in that time frame. You know, I can think of, there's going to be two situations that I'm going to, you know, talk about, and they're actually quite, you know, emotional, so I'll try to kind of keep my composure with it. And it's funny because it was two separate players, two separate, you know, incidents that wasn't like particularly, you know, close with in terms of like a relationship. Like, I think we butted heads from a player coach, you know, standpoint. But when things got, you know, really bad, or they had a bad situation, you know, with these two particular instances, you know, I was their first call. So I think, you know, one was unfortunately a sexual assault, and another was a interaction with with the police. Both were female. And the one interaction with the police was, you know, an African American, you know, Muslim, you know, girl. So
both players were female.
Yes,
Yeah.
both were female in this particular, you know, instance, because
Wow.
I've coached both men and women in college.
Okay.
And you know, these were just two that stood out because it was funny. Like I said, we really did kind of have like a contentious relationship, and it was playing. I liked them, you know, both. Like the one girl, I would say we were probably a little bit closer than the other, just because, I mean, she's just the one girl was just a character, you know, all the time. She was always on. But for both of them, you know, to trust and reach out, and I think to know that, you know, listen, you know, he's a father. You know, this is who I'm turning to, you know, to help me. This is, you know, my coach. I need help. I need to figure out what to do. And you know, and we did. You know, we navigated through these, you know, situations, you know, together. And you know, I remember the one girl, you know, actually, you know, said to me, she's like, you know, she's like, I don't know, you're the last person I thought that, you know, I would actually like be the one that fully relying on, you know, in this. And it was just interesting the way that it happened, and you know, there's a positive, you know, outcome, you know, from it, just maybe from a quote unquote, you know, school soccer side. I mean, it's a traumatic thing, and I think that they could have, you know, dropped out, left, you know, but they stayed in school. We worked very closely with the family, with everything to, you know, keep them involved, and eventually back out onto the, you know, the field, which I think was a major, you know, triumph for them, you know, personally, and you know, with the other, you know, girl too, that, you know, that to understand that she was, you know, mistreated, and you know, we weren't going to stand for it, and you know, we're going to do something about it and be there to support and help. And listen, being a young person is you know, is hard enough. Listen, being an adult's hard too. So
Sure.
but you know, when you're still figuring, you know, yourself out, you know, who you are, what is your place in this, you know, in this world, you know, and then, you know, if you're a female, if you're a different race, if you're a different religion, you know, you come from a different, you know, country, you start wrapping all of this stuff, you know, in, and then how how does that interact in the community that that you live in, and so whether it's racism, whatever it may, be that somebody, and the one situation was a combination of things. And, listen, I come from a family of law enforcement. My dad was a police officer here in Nassau County, and I think obviously I'm a pro police, guy. And unfortunately, I had a player that had a bad experience with, two officers. But I will say that the chief that we had dealt with took it very seriously and whatnot. And, if anything, I know that it was going to be an opportunity to obviously get those guys, retrained and understand, again, that, sometimes, we as adults, don't understand the impact that we have on young people. And, whether it's, our own kids or students, the people that we coach, the people that we work with, the people that we interact, with. I don't think people truly understand the power, that they have and the effect that they can have just on other people's lives with something you say, something you do, how you look at, somebody. And unfortunately, this is the world, that we live in. Again, this is not a political thing. It's not anything. It's just, when you, for 29 years, when you're with, obviously kids, and you're seeing the crucial time that they come through, the changes, the maturity, the ups, the downs. You think a little bit more about, your actions, what you do, at least you try to, I mean, I haven't always done the right thing in instances, but, I think when you have these difficult things, it becomes a little bit more sobering. It makes you take a little bit more stock in what you do and how you treat people, and to make sure that you're careful, in doing things. I think sometimes people can walk too much on eggshells. Again, I think, you still have to have some, some comedy in this world, some good joking and some good banter, but, we also have to always be mindful at what expense, that can be it, and what's the right situation, for it.
Yeah. I want to say I'm not surprised that, as one of their resources, they turn to you, because it's like sports to me, it's like, for those of you who haven't read it, like The Art of War by Sun Tzu, right? Like, there's a lot that you can gain in not necessarily war from that book, but whether it's life tactics, right? And it's like nothing shows more tactics than in sports plays, right?
Yeah.
It's like you're teaching young individuals tactics in life, not necessarily just, playing with a ball, but like how to play in the professional arena or personal arena, et cetera, et cetera. So it's like for them to look at you as somebody that's, kind of like even like a father figure in a way, right? Because you're able to provide this life-changing perspective. These tactics are, life-changing. Sports plays are, really to me like an analogy of life in many ways,
of course.
and really overcoming different obstacles. So for them to, I'm not surprised that they would see you as a potential resource, especially in those traumatic situations. But I'm happy that continuing with the tradition of that father figure, you were able to get them through those situations, and then back on the field to play. I mean, you think, like when a traumatic incident, happens with, sexual assault or even a run-in with the police, that can shut somebody out, lead to potential depression, right? But what's fascinating is that not only were you able to help them out, they were, would you say that they were immediate? Like as soon as they got out of their rut, it's like, I got to get back on the field. Would you say that that's what
definitely two different, pathways, because two definitely, separate, incidents. So, one was quicker, one was much quicker than than the other. But, again, just, to get back to, here's the one thing I'll say about, whether it's sports or whatever the hobby or the thing that you like to do is. So the way they look at it, and what I've always said to, players at any level, for, let's just call it the 2 hours that we're together, whether it's for a practice, or a game. For those 2 hours, so it's 2 hours of the 24 hours of a day, those are the 2 hours that nothing else exists. Nothing else can hurt you. Nothing else can get to you. You're on the field. This is for the next 2 hours.
Focus.
Well, this is our safe space. This is our happy place.
Right.
This is where nothing else matters. Nothing else can get to us. All right. Now, at the end of that 2 hours, when you step back across, the white lines and back into reality, yeah, we got to deal with stuff.
Right.
But at the very least, and that's the way that I've always, for me personally, and growing up, and I just remember, it could be raining, it could be snowing, you could be sick, and I would never want to miss a practice, and I would be pissed off if a practice was canceled because of rain. Come on, because you didn't want to miss that time, that interaction. It always brought me such joy and comfort to be out there, and just then nothing else mattered. The impending homework, my mom is going to make me eat vegetables for dinner later. Just little things as a kid, that you're just like, but so you don't have to worry about it because now I'm going off to soccer practice, baseball, basketball, whatever it is you do. And again, whether you play piano, whether you do jujitsu, religion, whatever it is that you do,
It's therapeutic.
Yeah, that time is your time, and everything else is at least at bay for however long that that is. And I think as adults, it's important for us, to have that. Again, it doesn't have to be a sport or whatever, but I think it's important to find something that you're able to sit there and shut off, from the world. For again, whatever period of time, and whether that's a daily thing, a weekly thing, whatever you can fit in your schedule. But I think it's super, super important for anybody that's, successful, is that you've got to have something that's yours, some of your time that's truly, yours, and whatever that may be. Like I said, exercise, meditation, reading, painting, whatever it may be. Yeah. Whatever it may be.
Tim, would you say that whether it's your success or student success, would you say that it's luck, or would you say it's hard work?
No, I listen. I truly think it's it's hard work in what you do. I think you do get out what you put into it. I don't think we measure success, it's solely in terms of championships, and things. I think that's unfair. Obviously, that's our goal in sports. Is to win a championship. But to sit there and say if we don't, that we're not, successful. I think, at the college level, is obviously a little bit different than the professional level, where we're developing, young men and women.
Right.
All right, we're developing them still as athletes, as as people, and to help prepare them to go out, into the world. So ultimately, for me, my success is defined, on a completely different, level. This year, my college team, we went, to the national semifinals, for women's soccer. So, was that a great season? Yes. Did we fall just short of our ultimate goal? Yes. But they were fantastic, kids, fantastic players, fantastic group of, of coaches, and it was a really great, experience to go through. And listen, I've been to, the, NCAA tournament, several times, over the years, and gotten to, varied, levels. And, to be so close to a national championship, it's difficult. Played in a national championship game before and, and lost. And so it's, when you're so close, it's, it's tough. But the true measurement, for me and what I've done, it really is about what what my players go on to do. So,
right.
When I get the wedding invites, the birth announcements of their kids, that they're starting to coach, now, I mean, I've actually coached a couple of father and son combinations, which is pretty cool and unique. You definitely have to be around for a little while to do that. So no, I mean, for me, the ultimate measure of my success is just the success of the people that my players have become. And listen, I mean, there's some heartache too. I mean, I just had a player that unfortunately passed away, and it's somebody that that I loved and was such a great guy, and that's a huge loss for myself, for his teammates. Again, the world is robbed of of somebody that's still young and had a lot to give. So it's tough. So you there's the good, there's the bad of it. When the more people that you're emotionally invested with, the more opportunities that you're going to have as a coach for heartache and heartbreak.
Of course.
So that's a big thing too. I mean, there's a lot of sacrifices that that coaches have to go through within their own families, and dealing with their own emotions and and things. I mean, when you have to be on for everybody all the time, you have to make sure that you're able to handle yourself, take care of your family, and whatnot. And sometimes that can be difficult. And I think that's sometimes in the coaching profession, you've got a lot of coaches who are divorced and and whatnot, and there's something where people debate to be successful. Let's maybe talk about professional sports. To be a successful professional coach, it's you're all in. You're singularly focused, and nothing else matters. And you have coaches whose maybe marital relations break down and whatnot. But then you also have super successful coaches where that hasn't happened. So who's to say that one is right, one is wrong, or somebody that's not successful or hasn't won a national or world championship, but that has an amazing family life and has that balance. Listen, I think you can achieve success with having balance in life. So but I do think to be successful in anything, I mean, you have to work at whatever it is that you're doing. You have to put in, the time. And I do believe that there is, for the most part, a correlation between the amount of time and effort that you put in to be successful at your job, craft, work, sport, whatever it is, right? It shows. Your success will be measured about on the amount of time and effort that you put into it. And I really do believe, that. And that's why I say, luck has nothing to do with it.
So, what drives you currently to keep going? I mean, would you say that this is going to be the profession that you do for the rest of your life, professional coach? Would you say if that's the case, what is continuing to get you to move that needle? It's like, oh, I gotta continue doing this.
I think as coaches, I mean, we're architects, we're builders. I mean, we're always building forward. I mean, so the new project with Raisa, launching our London teams is huge. So that's excitement. That's what drives me is to our program in Leeds. The men's side has been around for 14 years. The women started last year. We're continuing to expand what we're doing, up there, and now, launching the men's and the women's, London teams, is really, exciting. That also comes with a whole new range of degrees that are open, to the student athletes. Where Leeds we don't have the same, offerings. So that's what's exciting, is about, again, always building and being able to launch something and then see that success and see those players graduate. What do they become? Who goes on to become a pro?
Yeah.
Who ends up staying in England? Who goes back? Like, what are they going to do? Like, it's that unknown. It's like watching a TV show, a movie. You don't know what's going to happen, so that's why we watch it. We're sitting there waiting to see what happens. So that's what drives is, my TV show, my movies are it's real life. It's displayed in front, and I go from season to season, right? I don't know what is going to happen in season two until we get there.
Yeah.
And stuff. So, it's it's not a streaming thing. I can't binge it. It's a week to week thing. But I think that's that is what's exciting is the unknown, and again, we have goals. We're trying to achieve them, and I think until I fully lose that competitive edge, that spirit, that that fire, that will signify a time for a change and whatever. But right now, with what we're doing over there, that's the driving factor that keeps me well motivated.
That's
well
awesome.
motivated. Yeah.
It's a great legacy that you're leaving for yourself, for that, with the impact that you're leaving with all these great men and women that come into this thinking, hey, I want to pursue experience in a sports team overseas, but then leave with something greater,
Yeah.
And that's I always find great excitement with sports teams, whether it's martial arts or even like professional sports teams, or just like people that come together and share an experience together. It's like it's great. There's so much to be gained from that. Yeah. But Tim, I don't know how else better to end it. Now I want to say I'm going to leave the information to Richmond American University. Again, Tim's the director of the RAISA program. I will also include like a link on as far as anybody's interested in enrolling or how the whole process is. I'll include the link to that as well. But Tim, are you up to anything currently besides being a director of RAISA?
Well, yeah, no, I mean that's the big
Yeah.
thing. That's
Yeah.
what we're doing. I mean, we're
Yeah.
I'm recruiting for student athletes
Yeah.
for the fall and obviously beyond. Our recruiting cycles are 2-3 years
Yeah.
out. It's a tremendous opportunity for anybody to be able to send their kids overseas and still pursue playing and the dual degree and stuff. So that's the big that's the big thing that that I do every
Yeah,
day.
let's do it. So
Yeah.
Tim, thank you so much for coming on. I'm gonna again include all the details.
Thank you.
I really appreciate ya. Awesome episode.
This episode is brought to you by Jing's Mortgage Team. Jing's Mortgage Team is a team of real estate mortgage professionals whose mission is to help anyone with their real estate needs. If you're looking to buy a home, sell a home, refinance your home, have credit issues, or in need of an investment loan, we can definitely help you. If you're looking for a real estate agent, we know the best of the best real estate agents. Visit the link below for more information.